Chapter 24. Our La Toussaint dinner was a joyous affair, much the same as it had been the previous year. Admittedly, the serving of drinks was probably the tensest part of the meal. Mrs. Morrel stood beside the 3 pitchers on the table.
"What would you all like to drink? We have a pitcher of wine, one with grape juice, and another with water. The water is mainly to dilute the wine if needed, and if we run out of everything else."
Father quickly replied with a smile. "I think all of us would be quite content with the juice. Thank you." She filled his glass, and as she poured a smaller amount into Hannah's glass, I considered for a moment to ask for wine instead, just to spite Father, even though I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed it. Mother, however, did speak up.
"Actually, Selina, would it be possible to get a mixture of the wine and juice?"
Clearly surprised, Madame Morrel laughed, and I could see much of the tension leave her body.
"Of course, Marina. I believe I shall have the same."
She half filled each of their glasses with the juice, then added wine. Mother picked up her glass and took a few sips, pointedly avoiding my father's miffed glare. No one showed any sign of noticing their interaction as Madame Morrel continued to pour drinks. Once Mr. Morrel returned to his seat, Mrs. Morrel addressed our family again.
"I believe, going forward, it would be prudent to follow the precedent set by Corban last year. We'll serve each of you a smaller amount of everything in case the spices offend your tastes. If everything is agreeable, you are welcome to have more of anything. There is more than enough for everyone."
I shared my desire to have a normal amount of everything.
"Of course, Corban. And just so everyone knows and can thank him personally, this was the first time Corban was entirely responsible for cooking the paella."
She started dishing it onto everyone's plate, followed by slices of lamb and portions of garlic knot bread. Suddenly, I could relate to how the Morrels must have felt the previous year. I was focused on Mother and Father, watching how they would react to the food. Mother ate everything normally before asking for another small portion. Father reacted similarly to how I had, being unaccustomed to such dishes. After his first bite of paella, I leaned over to him and Hannah.
"Try eating the bread with the paella. It helps to fight the heat of the spices."
The biggest surprise of all was Hannah, who cheerfully ate as she kneeled on her chair. She followed my advice with the bread, and ate everything on her plate as if she hadn't eaten all day. After that, she also asked for more of everything. Once my curiosity at their responses was satisfied, I focused on my own food. First, I ate most of the lamb on my plate, followed by the bread. Finally, I cautiously tasted the paella, worried that it had somehow turned out wrong. I chewed it thoughtfully, realizing that, if anything, it tasted almost exactly as I remembered it tasting before, when Mrs. Morrel had cooked it. After the first bite, I looked up to find she was intently looking over at me and smiling.
"It's perfect."
Her whisper was accompanied by a look of pure pride. I looked across to Colette, who was also smiling at me. At first it was difficult for me to truly believe they were being honest, but with each person who commented on the quality of the paella, that doubt slowly disappeared. Even Henri begrudgingly nodded along with his father's praise. I decided that if others were confirming gifts in my life, it would be foolish to deny those gifts. I also knew that false humility was an annoying trait in others that I didn't wish to emulate. I was beginning to understand that one of the most difficult aspects of learning to live with my gifts was not just acknowledging them and developing them, but learning how to accept the honest praise and admiration that resulted. After everyone had eaten their fill, Mr. Morrel stood up from his seat and looked over to Father.
"Stephen, would you mind helping me clear the table and wash the dishes?"
"Of course, Leon." Father began to stack the empty plates nearest him.
"I'll help, and so will Henri."
As they joined, I was about to begin helping them, then thought better of it. I had seen firsthand how, even in a kitchen as spacious as theirs, too many helpers made the work more difficult, not less.
Let's move to the living area so we won't be in their way.
Moments later, we were all around the couch. Hannah and Marie resumed their colouring, while I sat on the floor across from them. Colette settled into what I thought of as Louise's chair, ceding the spacious couch to our mothers.
The food was delicious, all of it. Corban, you did a marvelous job with the paella. I haven't had it for many years, not since before I married your father. Have you been practicing cooking often?
She looked from me to Mrs. Morel.
Yes. Since first eating paella last year, I think I've helped cook it twice. I was nervous, and I don't think I would have gotten it just right today if it weren't for Colette.
Perhaps I did remind you not to stir before you started cooking, but who's to say you wouldn't have remembered anyway? You've learned with the best.
She looked to her mother, eyes sparkling. Mrs. Morel blushed, then chuckled.
Oh, stop it, both of you. It's obvious that Corban is talented, gifted even. It's as if he can watch something, then do it just as well himself.
I think not. I had quite a difficult time with sewing this past summer, and...
Mrs. Morel grinned.
Perhaps Corban doesn't have a future as a tailor, but he's shown himself talented in many other areas. He's been practicing his French with Louis, and he mentioned he practices Spanish with you, as well as others in the surrounding community.
I zoned out at that point. I wasn't particularly interested in hearing them talk about me. In fact, I was more than a little embarrassed, so I intently focused on watching Hannah and Marie colour.
Corban has shown great interest in the area of commerce. He would make a fine trader someday.
Colette's comment and bright smile attracted my attention again. I noticed a hint of a frown touch Mrs. Morel's face as she looked at Colette before she replaced it with a forced smile and looked away. Mother also looked at Colette for a few moments before her gaze rested on me. Her lips were pursed and her eyes became slightly unfocused. With a slight jerk, she redirected her gaze somewhere else. Perhaps. Mother's reply was simple and quiet as she continued to avoid my gaze. As the conversation moved on to other topics, I continued to consider Colette's mention of another possibility in my future. I began to wonder once again whether being a cleric was what I wanted for my life. I knew that's what Father wanted for me, and what his father had wanted for him.
Didn't he ever want to be something else when he was younger? Surely he must have.
The men and Henri stepped out of the kitchen and into the dining room, finished with cleaning up after dinner. Perhaps it's time for us to return home. It's nearly 8th hour, and the boys do have school in the morning. I looked at Mother, hoping she would intercede for more time. But after a few moments she stood up from the couch.
But we've just...
Colette abruptly stopped at her mother's sharp look.
Of course. Henri, Corban, and Marie do need their rest for school tomorrow.
Mrs. Morel stood, then gave Mother a short hug before continuing.
Thank you for accepting our invitation to celebrate La Toussaint. It's been a pleasure having you join us for dinner.
Our thanks be to you. Father stood next to me, putting a hand on my shoulder. I stood, then looked over at Hannah, who continued colouring for a few seconds. When Father touched her shoulder, she looked up and was about to whine when she saw his face. She stood up slowly and began to edge around the table. Father inclined his head towards Marie, prompting Hannah to speak, with a hint of sadness.
Thanks for wedding me, Kohua. Oh, you're quite welcome, Hannah. Maybe you can come over and color again sometime. Yes, please.
Hannah squealed excitedly, skipping around the table and into the front entryway. Sullenly I trudged after her, immediately followed by Mother and Father. After all of us had put our shoes on, Father opened the front door. As they walked out ahead of me, I hesitated only a moment before returning to the living room.
Thank you again, everyone. It really means a lot to me that you would invite my family for dinner.
Corban, I think I can speak for all of us when I say that it was a pleasure having your family join us. I'm so proud of how much you've grown over the past year, and not just in your skills and knowledge of cooking. I hope that you can continue to come visit, and I hope we will see your family more as well.
Madame Morel came over and wrapped me up in a tight hug. As I reached my arms around her, I could feel tears forming at the corners of my eyes. Before they could become too noticeable, I broke the hug and stepped back.
Good night, everyone.
My voice faltered, heavy with emotion.
Good night.
Sleep well, Corban.
Colette beamed a bright smile.
Good night.
I hurried out the door to catch up to my family, who were getting settled on their bicycles. I mounted mine just as Father finished securing Hannah in the carrier on the back of his. As we rode home, my thoughts dwelt on the changes in Colette's behavior towards me over the past few months. I had been wondering if she had always been so warm towards me, and I just hadn't noticed before. After the day's events, there was no doubt in my mind. Colette had changed, not just me. She had never touched me before, ever. And now it seemed she was touching me almost every time we were alone. She had hugged me tightly on her front steps and kissed me on each cheek. All I really knew for sure was that when she touched me, it simultaneously gave me the shivers and made me feel all warm inside, and I liked it, and felt myself wanting more.